we kind of think when it's around that question of like how much sex should I be having, we always think about like, well, everyone else is having more sex than I am.
The mismatched libido was a huge thing in our DMs. So many of you got in touch because it's such a tricky thing to navigate.
I started hormone replacement therapy about 1.5 years ago, and I started taking testosterone, and I turned into a horny teenage boy.
Imagine going from like maybe even identifying and being like, I'm asexual, and then realizing the medication you were taking, which can happen to a lot of different medications like antidepressants or whatever, is impacting that, and then getting off that and being like, I want to have sex multiple times a day.
Genuinely, you do not feel as loved when you are being rejected for sex. Frequently, semi-frequently, you just feel like your partner does not want that connection with you.
Hi, I'm Dee Sullivan, and I am currently in my luteal phase.
Hi, I'm Pete Rasmussen. I'm in my follicular phase.
So you're horny.
I'm feral. And you are, what is it? Closed. Closed for business. Shop.
Nothing's happening down there for at least another week.
You know what? That's fine. Let her rest.
If you are wondering what the fuck you're listening to, this is the hookup.
So crass.
I know. I'm like, they could have stumbled upon on YouTube or Spotify and seen the video and gone, sorry, what is this?
What is it?
We talk all things love, sex, dating, and relationships. And we talk a lot about sex, clearly.
Yes. Yeah. And something that came up, which kind of inspired this episode for us. Don't know if anyone's watching Love is Blind. The UK season 2 just came out a couple of weeks ago, and I binged it with my housemate. And there was this moment where a couple were talking to each other in these pods, because that's the point. They're trying to fall in love without seeing each other. And this guy asks her a question, and he's like, hey, how often do you think we could be having sex in this relationship? Like, can you give me a number because it's really important to me? And like,
Wait, are they already in a relationship without having met?
they hadn't like committed yet.
He's
They're
saying
still
like hypothetically, if we were to end up together.
Yeah, feeling each other out.
Because the premise of the show is to like get engaged and then you get to meet each other.
Exactly. So before he'd even seen her, he was like, I need to know how much sex we're having. And both me and my housemate were like, ew. Like, that's a gross question, especially in the context of the show where it's very romantic. It's very like emotional. And I think it just took me out of the moment for a second. And I was like, yuck, I actually kind of don't like that he's asked that. But then I had to sit and think with it. And I was like, hold on. If sex is really important to you and if it's something that you genuinely need a couple of times a week, like maybe it is a fair question to ask, because if you're going to date someone or get married to someone who doesn't have as high a libido as you, is that not going to work out? So that's what kind of inspired this episode. We wanted to know, how often are you having sex?
Well, how often do you think you should be having sex?
Well, that too.
Yeah. Like what is your, because what did he say? What was his response to how
He
often
wanted
he thinks
it like daily, I think. Like he was just ready to go. Like it's a very important value to him. So he was like, you've got to match me on this.
So yeah, we want to look into how much sex you wish that you were having or that you are having. What influences that, right? Like if you are someone who's like, I want to have sex daily, why do you think that is? Or if you're someone who maybe is like, I don't really want to have sex at all, why do you think that is? What's impacting that? And at the end of the episode, we're going to find out whether or not there is a magic number or if research shows how much sex we should actually be having.
All right, let's get into it. So first up, we went onto our Instagram at Triple J The Hookup to ask you, how often would you like to be having sex? The highest number, weekly at 69%.
Love that.
Nice. Daily, 23%. 8% of you said you want it monthly, and 1% of you said you're happy with it yearly.
FYI, we could only do those 4 choices because as a poll, you could only pick 4 things.
Yeah,
so,
it's very restricted.
Yeah.
But 69% of you were like, I want to be having it weekly. So then we asked a follow-up. We said, how much sex are you actually having? So the weekly people, only 46% of you are having it weekly. Where 23% of you said you wanted to have it daily, only 7% of you are actually having it daily.
That's such a big drop.
The monthly was where we saw the biggest discrepancy, right? So 34% of you are having it monthly. And like 8% of you said that you only wanted it monthly. So that's a big difference.
And 1% of you said that you would like to have sex yearly. and 14% of you are having sex yearly. So we can tell you that the amount of sex that you wish you were having does not match the amount of sex that you are actually having.
Shocker.
Which we're gonna unpack some of the reasons why that might be the case. But let's have a look at some of the DMs that we got around your ideal amount of sex. So Josh said, girlfriend and I have sex daily, sometimes multiple times per day. We have pretty identical sex drives. Mitch said, it used to be 4 to 5 times a week. Kids now mean it's once every 4 months.
Whoa.
Anto, about 4 to 5 times a week. It keeps me satisfied. Starts feeling like a chore if it's every day. And B says, not fussed. I can match my partner, but to be honest, I could go without sex for the rest of my life. It is one of those questions I think a lot of us we don't feel insecure about it, but I think we feel really curious. Like I think we kind of think when it's around that question of like how much sex should I be having, we always think about like, well, everyone else is having more sex than I am.
Yes. Oh my God. I was just about to say, you constantly have comparison to other people and you worry about yourself compared to them.
Yeah.
And you're like, am I doing it enough or too much or what's going on?
And I can tell you from our DMs, it was like there were so many DMs, but there was also so many different wants and needs, and that was like so reassuring, because I think I am that person that's like, oh, everyone seems like they're having like they're fucking all day every day,
Yeah.
which isn't what I want. But then I'm like, am I not normal for not wanting that?
Yeah. But also if you're listening to this and you're kind of like me and you've had like a lot of long-term relationships, like you know the reality of it. Like it slows down and that's just the truth. But there are different reasons why it ebbs and flows throughout your life, and we asked you, and there were so many responses coming back to this as to like the factors as to what is affecting your sex life, why you're having more or having less. So obviously one of the big ones, long distance. Steph said that she would prefer sex a few times a week, but I live in a different city, so it's a few times a month. Another really big one that we saw and we really relate to, as you might have guessed at the top of this episode, is the menstrual cycle, right?
Shout out.
Yeah.
Always a shout out to the episode we did with Dr. Teresa Larkin on your flop and slay errors of your menstrual cycle.
Oh my God, huge.
Because there is like a hormonal reason why that is.
Yeah.
Which we won't get into, but it's really interesting. So listen to that episode.
Yeah. So Renee said, according to the ovulation cycle, I want sex heaps for 2 weeks of the month and then none for the next 2 weeks, which kind of checks out. We got this voice memo from Ash as well.
So I found that ever since coming off the pill last year, my sex drive just seems to be massively determined by my hormones and what phase of the cycle that I'm in. So sometimes it can be frustrating when you really want to have sex and I really want to feel that connection with my partner, but it just happens that I tend to be in the wrong part of my cycle. So my sex drive is just non-existent. In which case I kind of feel like I spend the whole month just waiting to be in my ovulation phase where I know my sex drive is going to be through the roof, but just because my sex drive is suddenly high, it doesn't necessarily mean that my partner's is. So sometimes if this doesn't really align through no fault of mine or his, it can kind of just sometimes feel like I've waited my entire cycle for nothing.
I relate to that so much. I count down the days to be in ovulation.
Yeah, you're really on top of your tracking.
Oh my gosh.
And you've influenced me. Like I have 2 period tracker apps. Like I know what the fuck is going on at all times.
I know, even recently you were like, I think I can feel it when I'm ovulating.
Yes.
So we do know that hormones play a huge part in, you know, your libido and how often you might want to have sex. Just one of the many things that can influence that. And we had a few of you DM us talking about taking hormones and how you've seen this change your sex drive. And we got this voice memo from Anik.
At the moment, currently, my girlfriend is starting her hormone therapy transition from male to female. And there's been some research that can drop a little bit, and so it has dropped a little bit. 1 out of 3 times I'll say we'll have sex, and sometimes we'll just cuddle, and we both know that sex isn't the main priority.
It's interesting as well because we got another voice memo from Sam with the opposite experience taking testosterone.
I am 28 and non-binary, and I started hormone replacement therapy about 1.5 years ago, and I started taking testosterone, and I turned into a horny teenage boy. Literally a gust of wind in the right way would make me horny. And my partner, you know, his libido stayed the same, which was relatively low. So we had to have a lot of discussions and navigate that. Most of the time, you know, I can take care of myself. And we've had to have a lot of talks about, you know, being intimate with each other without him thinking I'm trying to seduce him all the time or that kind of thing. But yeah, it has been a journey.
We had a lot of you message us as well talking about like medication and chronic illness having a major factor into how much sex you want versus you're having as well. So Megan said, I do want it weekly, but having endo and pain with insertion has ultimately ruined that idea. I feel like my partner wants sex more often and I feel so horrible not to be as up to it as much as he is.
Oh, that's awful. Yeah, Emma sent us a DM saying, ever since chemo 4 years ago, I've had no sex drive at all. We used to have sex multiple times a day.
A lot of people also messaged us about going off the pill, which is something that I can relate to because I went off it over a year and a half ago now. And we got this voice memo from Dre talking about it.
I spent the better part of my adult life thinking that I was asexual. After coming off of birth control and leaving some unhealthy relationships, I've discovered that I do want sex and intimacy in my life, and now I find that I'm seeking it out almost daily with a few casual partners since my libido is so high.
It's crazy because for me, I was on it for like over a decade, like for so long. And I think I didn't realize like how much my mood and my drive had just like plateaued essentially. And then coming off it in the last like, year and a half, I've really come to tune with like my body, my cycle, as you said, like I'm like noticing things about myself that
When you're in follicular?
Yeah, like I'm noticing these things and like it is really cool to like have that libido kind of back. And I had no idea how much it had affected me. And to be fair as well, I was taking like the mildest pill that you could do. Like it was just like a very chill like birth control pill. And it worked for me and it was like good. I wasn't depressed or anything like that. But I didn't realize it had snuffed out so much of my like horniness.
Well, even Dre saying that they thought they were asexual.
Right?
Imagine going from like maybe even identifying and being like, I'm asexual, and then realizing the medication you were taking, which can happen to a lot of different medications like antidepressants or whatever, is impacting that, and then getting off that and being like, I want to have sex multiple times a day.
I feel like there was one point when I was younger where I was like, I feel like all girls go through an asexual phase, right? And then I was like, oh, maybe just me, because like maybe I was on the pill for too long. Like, I don't know. Like I genuinely thought that was like a thing. But yeah, we also got a voice memo from Liza talking about going on antidepressants as well.
So when me and my partner started dating, I started on anti-anxiety medication and lost all of my libido. And then my partner really missed just having passionate sex all the time. So we decided to open the relationship up, and it was the best choice we've ever made. She now can go and see whoever she likes. Sometimes we do it together, sometimes not. But yeah, it just gives a bit more freedom to the relationship.
This was huge in our DMs because like we mentioned at the start of this ep, there was such a huge discrepancy between how much sex that you wanted to have and how much sex you were having. And like we've been unpacking, there's so many different factors. And so for a lot of you, whether that was meds or whatever it was, made you have conversations in your relationship that like kind of you came to the conclusion that the best thing for you was to open up the relationship and get your needs met for the both of you. And it's been incredibly beneficial. This was something that Sean sent us a voice memo about.
One of the key benefits to polyamory for me is that I have a very high sex drive. I currently only have one lover, but I have had up to 5 or 6 people that I'm having sex with, and it's very important for me to have regular sex because I have such a high sex drive that it's very distracting and can actually be emotionally impactful, and having people available to have sex with is helpful, and masturbation just doesn't do it in the same way and is actually quite difficult for me.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah, I feel like I want to investigate that.
Well, I think it's like for a lot of you as well, there were so many different interpretations of what sex meant for you. So for some people it's like, oh, masturbation doesn't really work because for me, my sex drive is related to like wanting to feel intimacy or connected to someone or like
someone desiring me.
Like how you were being perceived. Like people said it made them feel really attractive and really hot, and it helped with their like self-worth. And it was just so fascinating to see that it was less about people getting their rocks off and more about what the act of sex meant to them.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the research shows as well that the main reason why both men, women, non-binary, the main reason why people want to have sex is because of feeling desired. So I think one of the biggest factors, and you might be waiting for us to touch on this in terms of like how much sex you want to be having versus how much you're actually having, is the difference between if you're in a relationship and if you're single, right?
Yeah.
Julia said, I want it weekly. I'm single. Feels like I'm freelancing. You never know when or where the next paycheck is coming from, which I love. I've never thought about it like that before.
When you're like weighing up whether or not to go on a date and you're like, well,
yeah. And
it has been a while.
Yeah, and then sometimes you go on a date and you're literally like, oh, it was okay. And like they clearly want to go back to theirs or mine or whatever. And you're like, I guess, like I don't know where my next meal's coming from. Like maybe I will.
When I was single, I felt like I was constantly keeping track. Like it was so weird. I
Really?
was like, yeah, I feel like when the longer it goes that you haven't had sex, like the more I hyper focused on it. Like I keep like when it got to like, because you know how I went through a period of like sometimes it was like a year, like sometimes a year and a half. Like
you went boys sober.
I went boys sober for 2 years, and like I every month it was like calculating how long it had been.
That makes sense. And especially like societally, everyone's always thinking about like that and like comparing each other. And like you said at the start, like we're always comparing about how much sex we're having with the other person. Alice said, when I'm in a relationship, I want sex daily. When I'm single, I don't care about sex at all. Which is so interesting because I feel like I'm like maybe the opposite. But I don't know. I've had a lot of different relationships, I guess. But
yeah, you feel like you lose the drive to have sex in a relationship. When you're single, you're like, I'm fucking horny.
Yeah, like you, I kind of was thinking about it a lot and hyper-focusing on it.
A DM from Lacey here saying, I'm someone with a very high libido and find it very important for connection. It's tough in relationships.
So this is the thing. So we asked you on our Instagram as well, if you have a partner or you're regularly sleeping with someone, do you feel like your sex expectations are matched? So 21% of you said no, they want more sex, as in you're like chilling. 39% of you said, no, I want more sex. And 40% of you said, yes, we're similar. So it's interesting how it's like 39 and 40%, like they're really chasing each other. It's like very, very close. But in general, you have a higher libido than your partner. So obviously this is a major factor as to why you are maybe not having as much sex as you want, especially if you're in a relationship or sleeping with someone regularly. The mismatched libido was a huge thing in our DMs. So many of you got in touch because it's such a tricky thing to navigate. Like, have you dated someone where you felt like you were really like really different sex drives at all?
I don't think I have. I've definitely my second boyfriend, I would say I think I actually had the highest sex drive, and it did make it's such a sensitive thing, isn't it? And it made me feel like every time that I instigated sex and he said no, I felt this like real shame of rejection.
Yes.
And it was something that came up a lot with us. And yeah, I definitely felt like it impacts the relationship because it's so hard to not internalize that as something that's wrong with you, or like he's just not attracted to me, or like I'm not hot enough, or whatever it is, you know?
Can I say as well, if you are a woman or female identifying, that feeling I feel like is turned up to 11 when you feel that rejection, because you're literally like, no, you're supposed to be like drooling over me. Like society has told me that like all you want is sex. And so if you don't want me, then what the fuck is wrong? Like what's going on?
There was one really big instance that I literally had to talk to my therapist about years later.
Really?
It made me so scared to instigate sex just in general from that point on.
Wow.
Because it just like triggered, it was just so, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting on the other hand as well, like we were sort of talking about this before off air, but like the power differences of when you have a mismatched libido. I think personally for me, there have been times where I had a low sex drive and I was dating someone with a high sex drive, and I felt like I had the power for some reason because I was like gatekeeping it, even though I wasn't actually. I was just more like, I'm just really like not in the mood or whatever it was. And it kind of felt like they had to sort of cope and take it away and just be like, okay, cool, like there's nothing I can do here. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like there's some power imbalance going on.
Well, I always interpret it as the person who wants the sex more. Maybe it's not a power thing, but I always feel like they are, it feels like they're more valued.
Right.
So like sometimes I feel like the person who's like, I have a higher sex drive, I want more sex, you're not we're not having as much sex as I want, sometimes to me feels like their want and need is valued more than the person who's like, I don't have as high of a sex drive and I don't want to have sex as much as you want to have sex.
Yeah, well, when you say it like that, it's almost like they're like leading the charge. It's like,
You're
this
the
is what
problem.
we're doing.
You're the problem.
My way
Rather
or
than
the
the person
highway.
with the higher sex drive being
Yeah.
the problem. It's always perceived that the person that isn't having sex is the problem.
Yeah,
Because we're such a
interesting.
like sex is such an important part of our world and society, and everyone like just, you know, it's like everyone just assumes that everyone's having sex all the time, daily.
Yeah.
Everything's so hypersexualized.
Yeah,
in
yeah.
advertising and moving in movies and stuff. And so I think that it's kind of this like underlying perception that the person who is not wanting to have sex as much is the person that has something that's more wrong with them rather than the person that has the really high sex drive.
That's true. And there's so many different ways this can be expressed and taken out on each other. Like in my example, I'm literally like, oh, for me, like I was the person that was sort of like not putting out because I was like, I don't want to do that. But there will be people that you speak to where they're literally like, okay, well, I'll give in and give them what they want, even though that's not what they want to do. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's really nuanced, and there's so many different ways that like you can be affected by this.
And we will chat to an expert, by the way.
That's true.
This is us just theorizing and
yeah,
chatting about what you told us in the DMs, but we will make sure that we get an expert to help unpack with some of that complex stuff, because it is like, I saw a therapist for it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard out here.
It's hard. Well, let's have a listen to what you had to say. So Chelsea sent us a voice memo about having a mismatched libido.
I had this issue with my ex-partner. We started our relationship like most people do, having a lot of sex all the time when it's new and exciting. And as time went by and we lived together, I eventually got no interest in having sex. My sex drive went down really low. I honestly would have been fine never having sex or being touched, and he still had a very high sex drive. He was thankfully very patient and he never pushed. He was very understanding that I didn't want to. He never made me feel forced. But like, for example, most mornings he would masturbate, which didn't bother me, but you could really see like the difference because I just had no interest in that whatsoever. Sometimes it almost felt like I should just have sex with him just because I felt so awful. It's something he wasn't getting, and it feels like such a big part of a relationship and such a big area for people to have a difference in. It's really tricky.
It definitely is. I really like this voice memo that we got from Bill, who was like, I have been on both sides of the coin here.
So I am approaching 30 now. I would have been 22 or 23 and I wanted to be a bodybuilder. So from this point, I used testosterone. The hypersexuality that comes along with it and the addiction to sex, the dopamine mining that is porn addiction, that is needing to have sex, or your partner doesn't love you, and developing quite an anxious attachment surrounding sex. Now, my partner did not have a high libido. I did have a high libido. So we would clash because of this. And it would only take, you know, the sense of rejection of not getting to have sex as frequently as I would like for things to not be so great. So the current situation is I have normal testosterone levels now, and I do not have a high libido, but my partner does. So I'm on the other side of the fence. It gives me the insight to see both sides, and I can of course empathise with her that genuinely you do not feel as loved when you are being rejected for sex. Frequently, semi-frequently, you just feel like your partner does not want that connection with you. Also being on this side of it, feeling like I need to meet this person's needs because I love them and I want them to be happy. It can create some like anxiety issues surrounding sex. Definitely, it has issues within the relationship.
Wow, Bill.
I know.
Thank
Isn't
you
that
so much
fascinating?
for sending that voice memo.
I love that he's gone on this journey and like totally like come around to it and just been like, oh my God, I know how they feel now, like the rejection, the guilt of it. And as you said, we will definitely have an expert to talk you through that.
And Carly sent us a voice memo talking about her mismatched libido with her partner and how that's been pretty hard for them to navigate.
I have a beautiful boyfriend, very patient and doesn't push me to do anything, but he is the one to initiate sex. I wish I was in the mood or had a higher sex drive. He would enjoy every few days. Me, I lose track, so maybe 2 weeks apart, and I'll eventually give in or get the gist of what he's trying to do, but by that point we haven't done it in a while, and I'm thinking, oh yes, damn, we should probably do that. And a break too long can make him feel unwanted. We are chill people, but also I feel we do internalize work stress a lot. When he is stressed, he wants sex and it relaxes him, while I'm in the opposite. I don't want to do anything but still be hugged.
It's really interesting to hear Carly talk about how they internalize their stress as well. And I reckon obviously that has a huge factor into why they have such a disparity between their libidos. And it's interesting how she was like, don't touch me when I'm stressed. Or what she's like, I want to hug when I'm stressed, but I don't want to get fucked. And he's literally like, I need to get an orgasm to get through my hard day at work. And yeah, like stress obviously has such a huge role in our bodies and how we react to partners as well, and especially with sex drive.
Research shows this as well, that like you are either someone who will be like, absolutely not, I don't want to have sex, or you'll be someone who it'll like her partner will make you want to have sex. Dr. Brad McKay, shout out, is someone we've had on the pod before, in a ABC article talking about this, says that when some people get a little tense, they also get a bit toey. They want to chase that endorphin rush of an orgasm. But most people, this is the part that I found interesting, most people tend to go the other way and get completely turned off sex. So stress can even lead to temporary problems with your hormones, he says. Your periods can go haywire. We saw this during the pandemic. So many people were talking about having issues with their periods or with their hormones, going into fight or flight. So yeah, it's really interesting. And I think like anecdotally, we see this with holidays, right? Like people are more likely to have sex on holiday, to fuck in a hotel.
Yeah.
Because you are hopefully not stressed.
Exactly. I had a friend who just came back from a holiday a couple of months ago, and they were like, we were doing it like 6 times a day. And I was like, yes, get it. But it makes sense because you're not thinking about your actual normal daily stresses. And also like a fight or flight response to stress, right? Like if you are really, really stressed and your cortisol is like raised, for some people, obviously as the research says, the last thing you're thinking about is like getting an orgasm because you're literally like, I'm trying to survive. Like my body's freaking out.
You're not even in your body to be able to relax enough to properly experience an orgasm or pleasure during sex. Like all the advice that we get from sexologists and sex therapists and experts is to be in the moment and be present and be in your body and to relax into that.
Yes.
So I totally get that. I'm like that. I'm like, the last thing I want to do.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. We also got this DM from Georgina saying, I had an ex long-term relationship and I never wanted to have sex. Maybe once a year. Thought I was the problem. Now I think doing all the mental load and housework killed my libido. So that's like another form of, I guess, stress affecting your libido as well. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I know a bit about the mental load, you're going to really relate to this. We had this voice memo from Monique talking about it.
It was a relationship that I was in for nearly 5 years. And it was his weaponized incompetence that killed my libido, I would say, and really shifted our dynamic from passionate in-love couple to roommate / caregiver situation on my part. And the mental gymnastics of housework, grocery shopping, meal planning, navigating our lives, planning holidays, etc., it just absolutely sucked the life out of my soul, and especially in that libido sense. And I think on his part as well, he lost the attraction towards me as well.
I remember there was a huge study that came out a couple of years ago. It was in 2022, and it basically said that gender inequalities in household labour predict lower sexual desire in women partnered with men. And I remember seeing it on socials, and so many people were in the comments being like, no fucking shit. Like it was so huge. And I think just like really reaffirming and reassuring for so many hetero women in straight relationships or with men, because we do know that women do in those relationships a disproportionate amount of domestic, mental, emotional labor.
But also what you might be seeing a lot of is kind of a trendy term at the moment, man keeping. And it's like the perception of your man as or your partner as someone who you have to basically be the mother and the therapist towards. So that's what the study like found as well.
It's not hot to want to have sex with someone that you feel like you're treating like a child.
And it's interesting how she mentioned at the end being like, and he also was turned off by me by the end of it. So it's not good for anybody.
You have someone like nagging you, telling you what to do, pick up your socks, do your cleaning,
do the
do
dishwasher,
the dishes.
Yeah.
Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you done that? Like, it's disastrous.
It's not great. So we wanted to know, like, is it a deal breaker for you? Is this something that you would literally go, I can't date this person because you're not matching my libido? And to go back to what we were saying about that love is blind moment, like my full reaction to hearing a guy asking, how much can we have sex during the week? Like, What are we thinking? Daily? Couple of days? Whatever. Obviously, my first reaction was ick, like gross. But again, I understand that sex is such an important value for people, and I understand it's so important in a relationship if you want to have a successful, loving, compatible relationship. I get it. We asked you on our Instagram, how important is sex in a relationship to you? 42% of you said very important. 41% of you said pretty important. So only a little difference there.
Yeah.
16% said somewhat important, and then 2% said not important.
I'm not going to lie, very shocked by that.
Really? Why?
Nearly half of people saying very important. That's a lot of people placing a lot of importance on sex.
But people follow us because we are.
I know, but that's why I think like it's kind of skewed, because I'm just like, there are so many relationships out there that become sexless, which, you know what I mean? And there are so many people who, maybe it's the age as well, but there are so many couples who end up just going like, I learned that sex just wasn't important. What was important to me was having like a partner who was there while I was sick, who looked after my dying parent, who blah, blah, blah. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for like nearly half of everyone to be like, it's so important to a relationship to me. It's, I love that, but I'm like,
guys are in
wow,
the
I'm
prime
really,
of your life.
I'm really shocked by that. But yeah, I do think it is because we have so many horny, sexy people in our DMs following us.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, we did get a few DMs about this and whether or not it was a deal breaker for you. Harrison said, I am 22, I Maz almost daily, and I have sex with my girlfriend once a fortnight, and we laugh about it, which is kind of nice because it's like, clearly it's important to you and you like have a higher sex drive, but it's nice to know that you can kind of manage it and just be like, hey, that's okay. Like I can sort myself out, which is good. On the other side of it, there are people who are breaking up over it. So Imogen said, I just ended a relationship largely because the sex drives weren't compatible and it made it hard to feel wanted and attractive when you would initiate and get nothing back. Other intimacy was there and a lot of love. It just felt like constant rejection, especially as a woman.
Oh, kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your love is blind guy.
Yes.
Who checks before he fucking gets down on one knee. Like, hang on, before I commit to you, make sure we have sex every day. Maya actually checks as well.
I've never broken up with someone over my high libido, but it's also solely because I've made it a rule to find out if their libido matches mine before I even consider getting into a relationship with them. I find it saves me a lot of frustration and heartbreak down the line. Though I do find whenever I mention this to somebody else, or if someone ever asks me this question in real life, they always think it's really selfish or vain somehow, and I never understand it. I feel like there's no shame in finding that out before you get into a relationship with somebody.
You know, that's actually really refreshing to hear, especially coming from a woman as well. I'm kind of like, yeah, maybe we should be normalizing this. Like there, as you know, like there was so many people who DM'd us and said like, I've got a higher sex drive than most women. And like, this is so important to me.
Yeah.
Imogen before saying like, again, especially as a woman, like it just feels like constant rejection when you have a high libido and somebody's not matching you. I think maybe we should be normalizing asking. Maybe I'm changing my mind on
and
this.
making it more of a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more
could
like,
save you a lot of heartbreak.
I think it's more just like, which is what we're doing with this episode, is normalizing that is a thing for people, and that's completely fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everyone deserves to get the kind or have the kind of relationship that they want to have.
Yeah.
Because that also extends to people who are like not that bothered by sex and they value other things in the relationship, and they might look for that over sex.
Well, at the top of this, we did do the poll where we were like, how are you going? Like, are you matching your person? And 41% of you said, yeah, we're pretty similar in terms of the expectation of sex in our relationship. But going back to like as well what we were saying about like the power play of it all and like the tension that it can bring, like it is so important to get on the same page as that, because so many of you said, I feel so guilty, I feel like horrible as a person, I feel like I'm not giving them and satisfying them in a way that they fundamentally need. So maybe it is fair enough to just like really be open and honest about it, even if it is a tricky conversation.
Yeah. And speaking of that shame, that a lot of people feel, a lot of it is socialized shame based on your gender, right? So like Tom said, I'm barely even horny, could easily go a week without it. My female partner is always craving it and I feel really shameful and inadequate as a bloke because stereotypically the role is reverse. It's a conversation we've had many times and it's definitely an issue.
See, this is the thing, like there seems to be a cultural myth that women want sex less than men.
Yeah. Or that men are really horny and that all they want to do is fuck. And
Yeah. Like they could be turned on by like a light switch and it's like,
and
I'm
women just
ready
give
to
it
go.
up. And women just give it up to them, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And all that we're like the gatekeepers and we're like prudish and we're like, oh, I don't want to have sex with anyone. And, you know, it seems to be like this societal and cultural myth that is so pervasive. And from our DMs, so many of you were like, no, I'm a woman with a really high sex drive. So we wanted to clarify. We asked you, if you are a woman and do you think you have a high libido? 61% of you said yes. Huge amount.
Huge.
We got this voice memo from Katie talking about it as well.
I am one of those girls with a high sex drive. Mine is super high. As a single girl, I would masturbate most days, quite a few days, twice a day. Of a weekend, if I'm bored and not doing anything, I will spend the majority of my weekend masturbating as well. I definitely think it's a huge misconception in society that men are always the ones with higher sex drive. Talking to friends, even friends in relationships, it is often the girl with that higher sex drive. I do find men get intimidated by it, and I feel like there's some confusion when they hear how much I enjoy sex and how much I want it all the time. So I feel sorry for the next boyfriend. They're going to be in for a wild ride. Hopefully they can keep up.
So this is really fascinating because we did a bunch of research into this, and pretty much almost unanimously, there are so many studies saying that this cultural myth is a myth for a reason, right? So in this big study that you referenced before in 2022, the gender difference about like labor and sex drive, Emily Harris, who was a co-author of it, a social psychologist who's based in Melbourne actually, she said there's this assumption that men always have high desire, but there's plenty of work showing that they don't. Again, another person in a massive study, Sarah Hunter Murray, a PhD doing marriage and family therapy, also said, not only is the idea that men have a higher sex drive oversimplifies the notion, it's just simply not true.
I think a lot of research shows, and culturally we just assume that high levels of testosterone equals a higher libido, which we have seen. Like people said that they've been taking testosterone and it completely switches their sex drive. But it's so much more nuanced than that because there are so many different factors that go into, like we've been talking about, the impact of your sexual desire, and that could be things like what we've said, stress, it could be your socialization of your gender, it could be biology, it could be your age, it could be medication, it could be all of these things. And it doesn't necessarily just mean because you're one gender that means that you have a higher sex drive. There was a 2010 review of multiple studies about this that found that approximately 14 to 19% of men regularly and reliably indicated that they had problematically low or decreased sexual desire. So like we heard before from Tom, who felt a lot of shame and inadequate as a bloke, just know that there is like nearly 19% of other guys who similarly have low sexual desire as well.
Yeah. So that author that I quoted before who said like men, it's oversimplified. So Sarah Hunter Murray, she's the author of Not Always in the Mood, A New Science of Men, Sex and Relationships. And she was basically saying like men aren't these like walking robots that want to have sex at the drop of a hat. And we don't often give men permission to talk about the things that lead to a low sex drive, such as relationship dynamics, stress, exhaustion, parenting, work, the chores and the daily grind of life. So it flips both ways, right?
And that extends to women. I feel like we don't really allow women to have conversations around having high sex drives.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely.
Like I don't think that's really a cultural conversation that we have as often as we do about men.
Yeah, 100%. And I think at the end of the day, like a lot of you told us that it's not about the number, it's about quality over quantity. This is exactly what Ty said. I would rather have great sex once a month than just plain sex once a day or a week. Sex shouldn't feel like a chore. Too much can make it feel like this. And Ali said, I'd rather have a massage every day than sex every day, but I'd rather have no sex than bad sex.
Love that.
Massage?
As a massage lover. I love massages so much.
Yeah, I know. And like there's other forms of intimacy that you told us that you were obsessed with as well. Like so many of you were like, I'd rather be like snuggling and cuddling and kissing than having sex. And of course, again, like this whole thing, it's like it's an ebb and flow. It will change throughout your life. It's not just static. And that's what Dylan messaged us about, saying it's only going to be good if both of you actually want it. Don't pressure each other. It kills the vibe.
Yeah. So I think in this episode, we've clearly established that it is so nuanced. No matter what you're going through, it's completely normal. There are so many other people who are experiencing the same thing you are. And there is no magic number. Like we can tell you from all the DMs that we got so many, so varied from like, I want it hourly, still think it's a troll, to people who were like, I never want to have sex ever again. I don't have any sexual desire. Like it is such a huge spectrum and there are so many different expectations.
So if you've heard this whole episode and you're like, it's brought up a few things for you and you're like, oh my God, this is me. Like me and my partner are going through a drought and I really want to get back into it, but they don't. Or maybe the desire and the fluctuation of it is causing tension and you're like, should we break up over this? Is it a compatibility issue? Can you get it back? Well, we're going to have an expert to talk you through all of that. So if you have any questions or any doubts about how much sex you're having versus how much you want, please stick around in the next couple of days. An episode will be there for you.
Yeah. Check it out in your feeds. And until then, we'll see you in our DMs.
Bye.